1988. Workers from the mainland were pouring concrete supports for a rail system running north to the settlement. In the winter, we began building the supports for the elevated transit system that would unify the island. Concrete towers rose through the jungle canopy. The pylons ran for kilometers, one every 100 meters or so. I built them to last. Running east from the plant, they climbed the valley before descending south into the plains. Curving up out of the southern basin, the Atherton Causeway would bring visiting scientists north from the southern beach. In Gen Reception, I planned that someday visitors, scientists and politicians would be welcome here. May 1989, we began laying foundations on the South Beach for a hotel for visiting scientists and businessmen. A year hence, I thought, the island would be quite famous. The southern beach looked out over trackless ocean, down past Peru all the way to Antarctica. The main harbour for Site B. The docks were the lifeblood of Site B. Amber, synthetic eggshell and livestock came from all over the Pacific Rim. Chinese sailors singing in a curious, keening falsetto as they unloaded the synthetic polymer eggs. The smells of salt water and gasoline. The steam pipes hissed and spat. Water pumped deep into the earth and came back superheated. The Emily was a tug for bringing in the bigger freighters. Occasionally we took it out to observe specimens from offshore or to sweep the tide for traces of our operation. It was scuttled in 1989 as a quarantine measure soon after I gave the government my testimony. Far out to sea we would sometimes glimpse the US Coast Guard units assigned to observe our activity. In 1989, the park was nearly complete. Our investors demanded on-site approval, and I, idiotically as it now turned out, believed we were ready. The debacle of August 27th, 1989 is now quite well known, and the legal consequences were, as you may well imagine, rather extensive. I still believe Nedry left himself a back door, something about the hobbits or God knows what. On October the 3rd, 1989, I sat on a wooden bench in the waiting room in Washington, D.C. A government panel put me on the stand. As my name was read out, the session room went silent. They walked up the aisle towards the stand. I was being called to account, but I had no clear explanation to give. I'm sure you've heard the rest of the story on the television news or in the tabloids. Bankruptcy. I leaned against the wall, my whole body shook. I dropped the mug, it shattered. I let it lie there. We would be leaving soon. became known that I was bankrupt, workers simply dropped their tools and walked away. As we left, we vandalized our own locking mechanisms. InGen tolerates no trespasses. Buildings were stripped of everything valuable. Technicians and workmen crowded round the docks, fearing they might be left behind when the security ring collapsed. Armed guards stood watch. I can picture them moving cautiously through the dusty rooms in bulky biohazard gear, clutching rifles, poring over our records, reading our files. We sealed off the town, save for a few crucial gates, southward to the lowlands, eastward to the power plant and laboratory. We sealed the eastern gate for the last time. Gazing from my study window, I hit on a simple mnemonic for the passcode. Like Nedry, I felt I needed to keep a back door open. I gave myself over to the strange, lonely discipline of the market, investment strategies and profit. I stood apart, master of codes and lost worlds, of heat and cold, and the sleep of 100 million years. A lost world is a sort of scientific myth, an evolutionary scenario in which an ecosystem is isolated and preserved. The rest of the world changes, leaving a tiny, fragile pocket where ancient species survive.